Hey guys, good morning. I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late. I tried to go to YouTube and YouTube is still putting me on a hold for a couple more hours, so I can't do any videos yet. Let me see if I can invite some people. Hold on just a minute. Let me invite some people. If you're tuning in, go ahead and see if you can invite some people. You do not want to miss this message. It's going to be a really good message, and I'm going to give you guys some tips, and I'm going to be sharing some personal experiences about some things that happened concerning this topic in my marriage. And it's going to be a good message. So just want to welcome everybody on. If you're getting on just now, please share this message. I cannot go on YouTube right now, so we're going to have to do it on Facebook Live, but this will be probably one of the last Facebook Lives that I do. And today we're going to be talking about how to deal with sexual advances in marriage or relationships from the opposite sex. I'm going to be answering a couple questions, and I feel like if people know this and they are taught about it, and they can use it as a prevention tool rather than being caught off guard and not really knowing what to do, you can end up finding yourself in a bad situation that you didn't exactly plan on being in. So let me go ahead and get started. I just want to talk about a few statistics. I was listening to Marriage Today yesterday with my husband, and we were having a really good conversation. I was getting some of his intake on this topic coming from a man's perspective, but Pastor Jimmy Evans with Marriage Today, he said that he's been counseling couples for nearly 30 years now, and he said that nearly half of all affairs now start on Facebook. So right now, I think it would be a good time to talk about healthy boundaries. And the first thing that I think is really important in your relationship to help combat this is being accountable. You have to be accountable to your spouse and to yourself, and you never want to put yourself in an environment where you're alone with another person. So let's say that you have like a secretary or somebody that you work with, and they are of the opposite sex. You need to be accountable and leave the door open. Don't be in a place alone with someone where something can happen. The second thing is, if you can't do that because of a work situation, for instance, my husband is a plumber, and he has to go into women's homes when their husband is at work and they're alone. Sometimes he does not have a helper with him, and he goes into very personal areas. He might go into the woman's bedroom or their bathroom, and so he's going into a very personal place alone with that person. And in that case, what you want to do is you want to keep it professional. Hey, Philip, how's it going? Thanks for joining in. And so in that instance, you want to try to keep it as professional as possible, and your body language and the things that you say are going to be good indicators to the person as you're coming into their home or in a work environment that it is strictly professional. The next thing is you never want to interact on social media with the opposite sex. That is not appropriate. So if like you're a married man or a woman and you're talking to other men or women on the internet through Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, that's not appropriate. And if you do have conversations with that person, you want to make sure that your spouse is aware that you're talking to that person and what you're talking about. They have the right to know that. They also have the right to know your passwords, and that's part of being accountable. And it's really hard to show somebody that you're trustworthy and you're accountable if you won't let them have access to your emails, your passwords, and things like that. And I know that there's a lot of you who are not going to like that, but you can't expect someone to trust you and to believe that you're going to be accountable when you hide those things. I was listening to Pastor Evans last night, and he was talking about a couple who was married for a very long time, and the wife said that she had never seen his cell phone or his laptop. It was locked in his trunk before he walked in the door, and that man was having an affair with his secretary, and they ended up getting a divorce. The other thing I mentioned about never interacting on social media, there was a couple in the United Kingdom, and they were married, and they were both on social media, on Facebook, and they were cheating with each other online and did not realize it. They were talking and interacting with each other, and they went to meet one day, and they found out that they were cheating with each other, and they ended up getting a divorce. And so this is very important, that you don't interact with people of the opposite sex, because it's not appropriate in marriage, and it's not appropriate when you're dating either, because it sends the wrong messages to your spouse. Hi, Pastor Emmanuel. Hey, Marcia. How's it going? Let's see. Do not be in a situation where you can be falsely accused. This is huge. Especially if you're having problems with trust in your marriage. Don't put yourself in a situation where your spouse can falsely accuse you. Be aware of that, and you can use these tips as a preventative tool, so that because the situation can look a certain way, but that's not actually what you were doing. And then if you have any sort of problems with trust in your marriage, your spouse or maybe people around you will say, yes, that happened or this happened, and it didn't actually happen, but it makes you look really bad. So also, if someone does approach you and says something to you or makes a sexual advance towards you, another good boundary to keep is to let your spouse know about it and talk about it. And this is huge. And a lot of people don't do that because they're afraid that if they tell their spouse, hey, I was at work today and this lady said this to me, or, hey, I was at the gas station and this man came up to me and asked me for my phone number. Don't assume that your spouse is going to get angry. If you found your spouse attractive, 9 times out of 10, somebody else finds your spouse attractive. So that is a reality. A lot of us, even though we're married, we still get advances through other people out in public, or maybe through friends and things like that. And it's okay to let your spouse know, and it's a good thing to let your spouse know, because it brings you closer together, and it lets them know that that you have that open door of communication and you're not hiding anything. Because if you're having some trust issues, especially with this particular area, your spouse who's not trusting you might be thinking that it's happening and you're just not talking about it, and you're not talking about it because you're hiding something. And you're not necessarily hiding something, maybe you just don't want to talk about it because you feel that it will upset them. So I just want to encourage you to be a little bit more open with your spouse and begin this sort of dialogue back and forth. And then at the each week, you can even ask each other and say, hey, did anybody approach you this week? And it'll be a conversation that you look forward to having, that brings you closer together, reaffirms the fact that your spouse is attractive to somebody else. And it just kind of gives you a good feeling of bringing you close together, knowing that you have that trust, and that it's okay to talk about it, because it's just a reality. You're going to get approached by other people. If you got married or were dating, somebody else finds you attractive. So I'm going to talk about 3 different scenarios, and these are pretty funny scenarios, but I'm going to talk about 3 different types of women, and they can be men. But we had the first scenario. These are 3 different keys or things that I'm going to give you to do whenever you're approached by. Okay, I almost got knocked off. Are you guys there? Hold on, I'm having connection problems. Okay, so these are 3 different scenarios. I'm going to give you something to do whenever somebody approaches you. My husband, I was talking with him the other night, and he said that he feels like some of the times the reason why men just don't straight up, are like, no, I'm married, leave me alone, it's because they don't want to be rude or like hurt the girl's feelings, even though they're married. There might be people around them and they don't want to embarrass the person. So I'm going to talk about a couple scenarios that happened in our marriage and share with you what we do. And there's 3 different types of people. So the first person that I'm going to talk about is the general person who comes up to you And they're usually very kind. Maybe they don't know that you're married. They don't notice that you have your ring on. And they just kind of approach you and they're like, hey, how's it going today? You know, you look nice. Can I get your phone number? It might be in passing. This particular first scenario happened with my husband at the gas station. So he was pumping some gas, and a woman came up to him and said, you know, I don't normally do this, but, you know, you're really attractive, and I just wanted to know if, you know, you would like to go to dinner, and here's my phone number. And my husband very respectfully declined and said, I'm sorry, but I'm married, and thank you anyways, and I appreciate that. And the woman was very respectful, and she said, oh, okay. And she made a comment like, oh, well, you must have a nice wife, or you're a lucky person, and just walked away. It was very respectful and very kind. So that is the first scenario, and that's what you can do, is just respectfully decline the offer. The second thing is we had a friend of the family approach my husband, and she was a little bit more forthcoming. And this particular person, when my husband respectfully declined the offer the first time, she was more persistent. And she was really trying to persuade him to continue to talk with her, even though he said, no, I don't want to do this. And so what my husband did, and this is what I want you to do, if the person continues to try to keep flirting with you, you know when somebody's flirting with you, what you want to do is you want to start talking about your spouse. And you want to start talking about how awesome your spouse is. And this is what my husband did. And he just said, you know that I'm married, and I just, you know, I love my wife, and she's just such an awesome wife, and she takes good care of me. And he just went on and on and on about how wonderful I was. And this woman became irate and was like, oh, well, look at you, Mr. Perfect Marriage, blah, 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 blah. And she was very rude and nasty and walked away. Later, come to find out, this girl was trying to set my husband up to cause harm to our family and our relationship. It was a really bad situation, and she was just using him. So be aware that people, even though they may come to you and make you feel great about yourself, a lot of times they have ulterior motives. Her boyfriend had just happened to be getting out of prison, and God only knows what would have happened if my husband had entertained that. But you want to just continue to talk about your spouse, and it's going to let the other person know you're not interested. And eventually, they're just going to leave you alone, because they don't want to hear about how much you love your spouse. They're not getting the attention that they want to get from you. And then the third scenario are people, this is the can't take no for an answer person, okay? This is the person that doesn't get it. You told them that you're married, you have a ring on, you may even be with your family at an event somewhere, and someone is still persistently coming on to you. In this particular scenario, my husband was at work, and he knocked on the door of a customer's home because he's a plumber, and the woman answered the door basically like in lingerie. And my husband said to her, oh, okay, I'll give you just a minute to get dressed. Seeing that she was not properly dressed, my husband said, let me give you just a minute to get dressed. And so she said, oh, no, it's fine. You can come in. Now, my husband had a helper there with him, and she opened the door for them to come in and showed them where the bathroom or the kitchen was, whatever he was supposed to be doing. And as my husband's walking in with his helper, she pulls him off to the side and starts talking very directly to him about basically asking him, are you married? Are you happy in your marriage? Are you looking for, anybody? And this woman was very wealthy, and she was also an attractive woman. She was our age. She was probably in her mid-30s, and she told my husband, sorry, my phone keeps cutting out, you guys. She basically point blank asked my husband, can I have sex with you? And when my husband said, no, I'm happily married, she said, well, how about you give me your wife's phone number, and I'll call her, and if she'll let me have you for one night, I'll pay you a couple $1,000s. I think it was like $2,000 or something. And ironically, we were struggling at the time very bad, you guys, for money. Like, we needed money so bad. My husband calls me, he goes out to the truck, and he's like, Candice, you're not going to believe what just happened. He's like, I know we need money right now. And he said, Satan is just tempting us left and right. This lady is crazy. And she just basically said she wants to call you and ask you if she can borrow me for the night for $2,000. And we were both just like, what in the world? When you have somebody who's that persistent, and they just don't take no for an answer, you need to just cut that person off, walk away from them. In this situation, my husband was working, and so what he did is he made sure his helper was beside him the whole time. He was not alone, and he excused himself from the job for a minute to call me. And he called me immediately and told me what was going on. You know, people are just terrible. They don't care. They don't respect marriage nowadays, and it's just a joke. And you want to stay away from people like that because they really don't care about you. And I want to address men for just a minute here and answer a couple questions. First of all, I hear a lot of men and a lot of male preachers and pastors say things like, basically they say things like it's not really their fault that they're being tempted by the other sex because, you know, women are so forthcoming and they're very consistent, and, you know, they're just, sex is in their face all over the place. It's on TV, commercials, yada, yada, yada. You are responsible. You are accountable for yourself, and none of us are above temptation. Even myself, even the best pastors that you see on TV. Nobody is above temptation. And so these are things that need to be talked about with your spouse. It's important to set healthy boundaries. I want to say that basically it's blame transfer. They're blaming the females and these women who are very sexually active, and they're saying that they don't have any control over being tempted. And it's just an excuse. I talked with my husband about this last night, and I went to the Word, and I found something very interesting. The very first sin in marriage, you guys, was blame transfer. And so you can't do that. Adam tried to blame his wife. And so we're not going to do this blame transfer. You need to be accountable. And you can't say, well, I slipped up, you know, and I was tempted, and I couldn't do anything about it. She was coming on to me, and she just, you know, swept me off my feet. If you're going to be that persuaded by people who are saying things and complimenting you, that's a good indication that you're not getting some of your needs met in the marriage. So if you're going outside, sorry, somebody just called me. If you're going outside of the marriage to get like compliments and sort of that affirmation, you're leaving an open door for temptation. That's not good. Do not do that. I wanted to, does anybody have any questions? There were a couple more questions I wanted to answer. Is it okay to have opposite sex friends in marriage? No, absolutely not. It's not respectful, and you're just setting yourself up for temptation. If I was a diabetic, I wouldn't go into a candy store just to look around. You don't do that. It's just not wise. So I hope I answered all the questions. I know I had a couple more questions up when I had posted this, but I just wanted to do this today and talk about this and share some of the personal things that we've experienced in our marriage, and really encourage you guys to have this open dialogue with your spouse, because it's happening. And if you're not talking about it, your spouse may assume that you're not talking about it because you're doing something wrong to hide it. So I just wanted to put this message out there today. It's not a long message. I love you guys, and just be encouraged in your marriage. Be encouraged in your relationships. And you can find me on YouTube. This will probably be one of the last videos I do on Facebook, because I could not get the YouTube to load this morning. But I will let you guys go. I love you, and I hope you have a great day in the Lord. And if this has helped you, or any of my other messages have helped you, please share them with other people. And please go to my YouTube channel, Candice Ford Ministries USA, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date on the latest messages. I've got some really good stuff coming out soon on pornography. I've got some other stuff coming out on abuse and marriages, and very good topics. So I love you guys. Have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.